Got your boots on? Yeah, it's the doorbell. I'll get some batteries in that. We'll make that thing work. So today we're hoping to make a pretty big change. If nothing goes wrong, it'll be our first night sleeping in the Airstream. We plan on at least getting enough in the Airstream where we can make it our primary RV. And so we're gonna move the Class A out of here. It's gonna be parked back over there to the right of the road. And then we're gonna pull the Airstream in where the Class A's at. And of course the biggest question is, how is the van gonna do with the Airstream loaded and the van loaded? It did great, you know, without the Airstream loaded, without anything in the van. So today's gonna be a pretty good test. We wanted to make a shakedown trip for like a full 4 days or a weekend or something like that somewhere, and pull the Airstream and hook it up and test it out and all that. But I think we decided we want to get to the Tampa RV show in Florida. So not that it'd be impossible to do that, but because we already have this site booked, we figured it'd be easier to go ahead. Instead of doing a shakedown trip, I'm gonna hook up the Airstream. And we've got a pretty good mountain here. It's called Monterey Mountain. It's about a 6% incline for almost 3 miles. So it should be a pretty good test for the Airstream and the van as far as towing.
So it's still a shakedown trip. It's just kind of...
We're just shaking it down a little close to home.
Yeah.
So I've moved our Airstream to another site in the campground. This is actually about the only level site in this whole campground. Somebody was here last time when I needed to hook up and take the RV to the repair shop. Right now, it's upside down, which I don't, you know, I probably won't drag there, but just in case, I'm gonna go ahead and flip this up. First thing you wanna do is get your trailer level. It's 19.5 inches. You measure the distance from the ground to the top. You want your hitch to be 1 to 2 inches above that. So the Airstream is 19.5, so I'm gonna try to, you know, go for probably 21.5 on the van. All right, let's see how this thing does. So far, it's been perfect. I mean, I couldn't imagine it being any better. I can hardly tell it's back there, to be honest. I'm curious, once I get on the interstate, you know, what kind of sway I'm gonna feel from wind, from semis, from that kind of thing. As well as, you know, how it does going up the 6% grade and coming down the 6% grade. But so far, the brake controller's doing what it should. You know, the stabilizer, I'm assuming, is doing what it should. I don't feel any sway back there at all, so far so good. So we're heading up Monterey Mountain. One thing that bugs me about this van is it doesn't have an RPM gauge on it. But I mean, I can tell I'm definitely not peaking this thing out or anything like that. I'm only going 60 miles an hour, but it's holding the speed just fine. It's not revving up like crazy to get up this thing. This is the exact exit we took when our fifth wheel broke down. It was actually our truck that broke down with the fifth wheel. We were doing a dry run to Crossville, Tennessee, and broke down at exit 300. So it's good to know at least that the Airstream and the van made it to exit 300. Our very first outing in the fifth wheel, and we had to have the fifth wheel and the truck towed to the campground we were trying to go to, which ended up being a nudist colony. Well, it wasn't still a nudist colony, but it was a nudist colony. It's actually really nice. Had hot tubs and tennis courts, a bunch of stuff you don't usually see at typical campground. So I'm back. Observations. I feel like I did pretty good. I don't think there's any problem as far as engine power or torque or anything like that. It could have, I mean, I was going about 65 up the mountain, but I felt like I could have went 75 or 80 if I really wanted to. So I don't think that was an issue. Braking did really well. One thing I did notice, because it's been a while since I've had a travel trailer, our fifth wheel had a little bit of sway to it. The motorhome really doesn't have that much. We got a 26,000 pound chassis. I mean, this van is not doing any worse than my dad's Dodge Ram 2500 did pulling this back from Texas. I mean, but it has a little bit of sway to it. So I don't know if that's the sway bar, some adjustments I need to make to that, or I'm just not used to having that sway. It's not enough to concern me, but it's enough that I'm like, you know, I'd rather have things as close to perfect as I can. I realize you're probably never going to get it where there's no sway with the trailer, but I want to cut it down. You know, I want to cut down on it as much as I can. Something else I noticed, the heat gauge is usually around 50%, something like that. But as far as, man, handling in town and maneuverability and driving, this is like way easier than anything else I've been driving. You know, way easier than the 40-foot motorhome, way easier than the 43-foot fifth wheel. You can just whip around, it just follows you everywhere. That's a nice change for sure. So the next goal today is to move the motorhome over here and then move the Airstream to where our motorhome is currently sitting. We're not gonna get everything moved today, we know that, but we wanted to have enough moved where we could, you know, stay the night in the Airstream and start feeling out what that's gonna be like and still have time to kind of transition back and forth to the motorhome because it'll be parked about 50 feet behind us. Motorhome's in its spot. Time to grab the Airstream. So we got all the jacks down, got everything hooked up. Electric is going, sewer's hooked up, water's going. Still got to fix these steps. The motor went out on them when we moved it last time to get propane. So, you know, 2 weeks before you use it for the last time. So, I mean, what are you gonna do? What do you want to do?
So you can really tell a big difference now that the Airstream is in the motorhome's place, and just walking up to it feeling like home is a very strange feeling, but it's exciting. It's like a new chapter in our life. I mean, it's a big difference. Look at that. It's all about the ride. Literally, really. It's about the experiences we get out of this. The home that we're living in is just our vessel to get to new places and make new memories, and doesn't mean I'm not nervous. I mean, anytime there's change, it's nerve-wracking, but I'm definitely feeling the difference right now, so I'm excited to have our first night in the Airstream.
It took longer than expected, but steps are done. It's gonna be just a little chaotic tonight while we're kind of in between both RVs. We're carrying stuff back and forth from the Class A over to the Airstream, but it's getting there. So it's gonna be our first night in the Airstream. We pulled it off. Didn't know if we would or not.
It's still chaos in here.
You can get to the toilet and kind of, you know, back and forth through the Airstream a little bit, but most of the sinks are not accessible. And
we'll get there.
We'll get there. Hensley asked to go to bed in her bed tonight and conked right out. And
I was worried about the transition. I think it's helped that we've kind of been coming over to the Airstream, and she's been getting to play in her room in her bed, and she's been pretty excited about the Airstream. So I think this is fun to her. So
yeah, she'll miss, and we'll all miss, I know, the motorhome. There's a lot of things we're gonna miss.
I mean, it was our home.
And that was her. You think of her, that was like half her life was in that motorhome or more. So
and we're not giving it up because we didn't like it. That I think it would be easier to part with if it was like we just didn't like it, but we loved it.
We went from the motorhome to this Airstream for the same reason we went from the house, you know, to an RV. It's for that flexibility and that challenge of, hey, if we can remove more junk from our lives, we can have more journey. I doubt we're organizing anymore tonight. We're pretty worn out, but we're gonna try to at least clear stuff off our bed so we can get some sleep, and we'll catch you guys later.